Hey everyone. Before we get started with the podcast, we wanted to send some love to our Los Angeles friends and family during this devastating time. Southern California is still experiencing extreme fire conditions with hurricane level winds.
Our heart goes out to any of our listeners, community, and loved ones that have been impacted by the fires and extreme weather conditions. We've shared a financial aid and donation roundup on our Instagram page with organizations, mutual aid, GoFundMe pages, and more if you're interested in supporting efforts.
It's been so beautiful to see Southern California band together in community with volunteering and more. And we are LA strong.
Welcome to Tremendous Talk. We got the industry, tea, and the jokes. Actors, directors, musicians, and more. You're listening to Tremendous Talk.
Hey everyone, I'm Law.
And I'm Ash, and this is a Tremendous Talk podcast.
Each week, join us as we guide you through the realms of Hollywood and beyond as we speak to industry professionals in the spotlight.
So grab a boba tea and leave your shoes at the door. Welcome to Tremendous Talk.
Woo! It is so good to be back. It has been a hot minute, Ash. I miss you. I hope you're doing well. It is so good to get to do more episodes. It's always a really hectic time at the end of the year and the start of the year, but glad to be back. And this week on the podcast, even more exciting because we have our first ever round two guest, like a returning guest, DANA LEDOUX Miller. DANA LEDOUX Miller is the co-director and co-writer of Moana 2. The first episode is so good, so inspiring. You can watch and listen to that episode wherever you listen to our podcast. It is sitting in the queue waiting for you. So you can kind of see the difference in the time that we did these recordings, but we're so excited to have her back on.
We love Dana so much. Round two, baby!
Yeah,
This is
baby.
very exciting. I love Moana, if you can't already tell, but I absolutely love the first film. I love the second film. I sobbed incredibly hard. Moana 2. After receiving an unexpected call from her wayfinding ancestors, Moana must journey to the far seas into dangerous, long-lost waters for an adventure unlike anything she's ever faced.
It's a brand new journey, and we're so excited to be on with Dana. So be sure to watch Moana 2. It's now in theaters. I'm sure it's coming to streaming soon. Just crossed $1 billion at the
1 billion!
box office.
1 billion,
It's
baby!
baby. We're so excited to celebrate with her. And also, just got to throw this in. I am Moana.
I wanted to say
Sorry.
cuckoo cachoo, but that's the wrong reference.
Or a little, ah! That's my hey, hey.
Oh.
Anyways, welcome back to the Tremendous Talk podcast, DANA LEDOUX Miller.
Dana, we wanted to check in with you before everything gets going to you. How are you doing? Are you doing okay? It's a weird time in the world, especially with the fires and yesterday. Are you
Yeah, yeah. 2025. It's starting great. I'm good, thank you. I mean, I my head is buried very deep in the sand, but thankfully my family, our home is safe and our friends weren't so lucky, but
Mm.
just trying to figure out what this new LA will look like. I'm sure like everybody is. So, thank you for asking.
Oh, yeah, of course. And shout out to your mom. Your
Yeah.
mom's like hand
Nobody's
crocheting
taken us up on these
blankets.
baby blankets yet. I
Really?
really,
It's so beautiful. Like that hours and hours of time to
Crochet
Yeah,
crochet those
she loves
blankets.
making them. She makes them
Oh.
for everyone. So have a baby, and my mom will make you a baby blanket.
Listen,
Okay.
the universe keeps telling us, giving us signs, you guys. Play
Dana,
sets,
I'd like.
blankets.
Do you remember our last conversation where I was like, Dana, you're a mom, you like are a showrunner, you do all these things, like you're a producer, all these things. How do you balance being a mother and like
Mm.
doing the things that you do and the way that you've navigated things? Like you were pregnant when the first Moana came out, and like now all of these things are happening, and we're just talking about your and like I'm putting it on my registry. Things are happening. It's like a beautiful time to have hope. Oh, that's a good question.
Wait, just to follow up, I think my answer to that question was you don't.
Yeah,
Like you can't
exactly.
do it all.
Mm.
I think that's what I said today.
I think that's exactly what you said. Like how can you have hope during this time? And following with the themes of Moana too, like she
Mm.
gets into some dastardly stuff on her adventures too. And I recall when I was watching too, I felt like this sense of like loss, especially when it gets really, really hard for her too in the middle. And I don't want to make any spoilers, but when things feel like there's no hope in the world, or when things just get, it's so full of hardship and it just feels so dark and gray out, how do you keep this feeling of hope within yourself?
Oh man. I I don't always, but I think for me, what helps is n trying not to look at everything in the big picture. If I think about all of the things happening in the world, even the state of our country right now, it can be so overwhelming. And, I'm not a politician that's passing laws. I'm not doing that kind of work. So I don't feel like I necessarily can have an impact on that scale. But like for me, it helps to just like really focus on what I can control in my life and what I can have an impact on. We're just talking about baby blankets. My mom really wants to help people who have lost their homes in the fires, but she can't physically go volunteer. And, we were trying to think of something that she could do that would make an impact. And she crochets these really beautiful baby blankets, and there's so many families that have lost literally everything, including their comfort blanket, their baby blankets, and that felt like a manageable way to have a small bit of impact. And so I think for me it helps to look small. What can I do in my community? And I think that's kind of how I've tried to focus my work, even within film and TV. Like I can't change the way every studio perceives Asian Pacific Islander communities, but I can help work with a small community of Pacific Islanders to try to get them ready to go out into the world to make that change. And so I think knowing that I can't do everything I would like to do and trying to do my best at the things that I know I can do, it helps ground me in a way
Mm,
so that I'm not overwhelmed by the magnitude of everything that needs to change in the world.
yeah. You control what you can, and then you find your tribe for the rest of it, right? Like to
Yeah.
kind of
And then
delegate.
I make really like bad jokes and cry a lot. Like that's just, that's like
You're on the right podcast, Dana.
you gotta do all of those things in combination.
Amazing. I mean, we obviously want to get into the success of Moana 2, especially like the exciting things that are happening. But because you're our first returning guest. I don't know if we've mentioned
Okay.
it, but last time that we spoke to you, the WGA strikes were just starting. It feels like forever ago. I love watching like your socials and seeing the conversations that you're moderating and the people that you're uplifting, and then seeing your like the all the premiere stuff from Moana was so exciting too. What were the biggest changes for you? What were the kind of like the biggest lessons that you took away from the time that we last spoke to you?
Oh my gosh, truly like my whole life has changed since I spoke to you because at the beginning of the writer's strike, we had not made the decision to make Moana 2 a feature. It was
Whoa.
still a TV show at that point. So like literally everything changed in that time. So I was fortunate enough to be writing on it as a when it was a show and it was animated, so it did not WGA, so we worked through the strike
Mhm.
in that regard. So um, I was picketing in the morning, working on animation in the afternoon. It's complicated. And brought up a lot of really mixed feelings because I think animation writers deserve a lot more than they're getting right now. But yeah, and then I got sucked into the Disney animation machine, and then we had a really short period of time, just over a year to turn that around into a feature that then premiered on Thanksgiving. So my whole life feels a little bit different and yet totally the same. Like
Mm,
I've never been a part of a project this big before. The making of the film, I think, was the most natural thing. Even though I've never done an animated project before, storytelling and the details of crafting performance and all of that stuff to me came I wouldn't say easily, but just more naturally. That's my comfort zone. The parts of my life that feel so different are when you do press for a Disney animated film, that is so much bigger than in scale than anything I've done before. I mean, you're talking about the premiere. We had this massive premiere in Hawaii. We flew to London right after that and had another big premiere in, multiple days of junkets and talking to press and just I've never had that big of like a scope and reach.
Mm,
And so being able to talk about the things that are really important to me as a storyteller from people literally all around the world was new and different. I got to go to the Golden Globes, which is totally surreal. And, you're suddenly in a room with everyone you've ever seen in any movie ever or TV show. And it's like, how did I end up here? But then my life is the same in that I'm just a mom and I still have to cook dinner and, you know, fill my car up with gas
yeah.
and help with homework. So, I think coming down from all of that, it's like a couple of months of just really intense press, which means talking about the same things over and over and over again. And then one day it's just over.
Yeah.
And you have to go back to regular life and kind of remember who you were before it all started. And I think it could be easy to get swept up in that. I could see how people get really caught up in the performance of it and the attention that comes so
Mhm.
suddenly. But I'm so grateful to have had that experience, but also really glad to get back to my own humanity.
Life, like
Yeah.
actual life. Well, it's got to be such a journey. Like we were lucky, and you're so good at it, by the way. Speaking
Thank you.
about the film and like all the stuff I've seen. Like we were actually in the crowd during the CCA's AAPI celebration where you guys accepted the award, and I was just like, wow, that's we had her on the podcast. How cool! Like it was just like we're so proud and excited for you, and
Aw.
I'm also excited that you get to like rest a little bit.
Yeah, I know. Me too.
But we do want to talk about the $1 billion mark being crossed at the box
Yeah.
office for Moana 2. Crazy, absolutely insane numbers. Just like not every Disney movie hits that. You know what I mean?
No,
So
I think only somebody sent me a statistic the other day. Only like 56 movies have made $1 billion, something like that.
wow, that's insane.
And a lot of them have been Disney movies, but like it just happened over the weekend. It just happened, what, Saturday,
Mhm.
Sunday morning we woke up to that news and um I my tiny brain can't really comprehend what that means. That's a lot of money.
Yeah,
But that's a lot of people seeing our movie
yeah.
all around the world. Like, wow. I can't really comprehend that we've had that big of an impact. That many people around the world got up one day and they were like, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna go see this movie that these people made. Like, really, really humbling. And I'm
Mhm.
really like, I can't believe that we did that and that people responded that way.
Do you have a favorite moment? Like I know this film was screened a lot and it was screened in like native language and all these different things. Like do you have a favorite moment of just sitting and listening to people while they're watching?
Hmm, that's a great question. I've seen it in every format at this point because my kids wanted to see it. Like we saw it in 40X, we saw it in IMAX, we saw it in the regular theater. There's just been so many really cool moments over time. I would say for me, the thing that was the most different was when we did an early screening in Utah. I mean, the movie was only not even halfway animated yet. It was like in June. It was still in storyboards, which is really hard for an audience. I mean, it was hard for me to adjust to as a filmmaker. I wasn't used to that process of like trying to understand a story through like still drawings.
Mhm.
But we screened it that way, and we got to sit in the theaters. We did a couple of screenings, like we did a family screening, we did adult screenings, and I sat in the family screening surrounded by that was a massive theater. It was hundreds of people sitting there. And that experience of having people see your work for the first time when you were still trying, like we were still trying to figure out what it needed to be was really cool to hear those, like to get a laugh in that kind of environment was like I was riding high. And I was so nervous because I'd done test screenings, but not on that scale.
Mhm.
Not sitting in an audience. I'd done them only on Zoom before. Um, it was cool.
It's so interesting because one, the demographic is like, like when I think of Utah, there's a specific
Yeah.
kind of person I think of. And then on
You
top
would
of,
be correct in
yeah,
that that's what it was made up of.
yeah, and then on top of that, it's previs. But I've been, I've seen screeners that have been unfinished, but sometimes the soul of the film is so good and so powerful, it doesn't really matter. Like it's like, yeah, these are pencil drawings or sketches, but it still comes through. I am curious though. You mentioned, I've heard a lot about it, but like the TV series to film, right? I was just wondering because you're taking a beloved film and then you were starting to adapt these characters into like a longer form series and then now coming back into a feature. I was just wondering what was your biggest takeaway from that process of like kind of circling back around and going back into like a feature format.
My biggest takeaway is don't do it that way.
Fair.
Um, but no, I think there's some misconceptions about what developing it as a TV show and then turning it back into a feature even meant. I
Mm,
think, I've gotten asked this question a lot, and sometimes it seems to me that the perception is that we had made this TV show and then we were trying to retrofit it into a feature, but we
mm,
were still so much in the development phase because really in animation you develop for so long, but you're only really animating for that last year. And so we had some stuff animated. There definitely were pieces that had been animated, but we were still developing the story when we made the choice to turn it into a feature. So it wasn't about taking something that was fully formed and then trying to put it into a different format. It was looking at these characters that we had really come to love and trying to figure out how we could use all of them, this ensemble of people that we had started to craft in order to push Moana forward. And
mm,
and to me, it was really important to just ask, like, what happened the day after Moana returns the heart of Te Fiti in the first film, and kind of take it from there. Like, what what was life like when she got
mm,
back? Like, how did she grow? How did she develop? And where would be a good point to re-enter her story? And we had kind of crafted some of that in the TV show, but it was more focused on the group. And if you're going to call something Moana 2 in a feature, you sure as heck better be focused on her journey and her arc and how she's growing. And so it was about kind of streamlining that. But it was an adventure all its own.
I loved it. I loved the cast. I loved like the whole crew together and the story. I was just telling Ash how much I loved it. And I know she loved it. I know she loved it.
My husband in the theater, he was like, I started crying because I turned over and I saw you like physically sobbing. I was like, oh, 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 oh. But I did want to get into this cast that you've built, right? It's truly an ensemble. Even though we're following Moana, it is truly an ensemble. But something I love is you saw her grow. It's not like
Mhm,
10 years later, right? But she has grown. She's older
mhm.
now. But you've started this. The film starts with when did it came out? Like 10-ish years ago or something?
2016.
Yeah. Kids have grown up with this film. They've
Mhm.
literally grown up watching it multiple times a day and stuff. And seeing Moana grow as well, seeing the older sister come into play, like there's so many people, there's so many ways to resonate with this film, right? Whether it be with Moni or Loto, like if you're a sister, you identify. If you're a mother, you identify. If you're a father, you identify. If you are just a person who has grown, which is everybody in the last couple of years, you identify with it. Was there intentionality of resonating with the people who have grown up with Moana in that way and seeing like growth on both sides, I guess?
Mm,
I don't think I wouldn't say in the development process that we were really thinking of that specifically. I think some of that's just subconscious because, as filmmakers, we also have grown in that time and we really wanted to tell a story of a more mature leader. It's like it's such a trick in a sequel, right? Like you want to make sure that the characters that you're telling a story about feel familiar, but they also need to feel a little bit different. And because Moana is only 16 in the first film, it made sense to us that she was having this coming of age journey, but she's still growing up. Like she's only 19 in the second film. Like if we think about, and we did when we were talking about this, we thought a lot about like that change from high school to college age,
Mm.
like you think you know who you are. Like I thought I knew who I was at 16 and then at 19. And I look back at that person now and I'm like, girl, you had so much to learn about yourself. And
Mm.
like life changes so quickly and so dramatically during those times, and you have to make these huge choices like, do I leave home knowing that when I come back home, it may never be exactly the same? Like all of those very like simple questions kind of inspired this idea of pushing Moana to be a little bit different.
Oh, wow. And I
Mm.
definitely felt that too. Like, I think everything that you just talked about in every scene, in every like frame of this film, you see and you feel that kind of essence of this subconscious like journey that she's on and figuring out who she is, but also at the same time like the growth and understanding and like new identity that we're kind of figuring out with her along the way in the film. Very beautiful.
Thank you.
I'd love to talk about because obviously there's so much culture that is fit into these films, and with the second one, I imagine you can kind of build on what was established in the first one for like a general audience, right? But I'm curious about the balance for you and your team as filmmakers to kind of create like a Disney version of this culture and lore while still balancing what is authentic and genuine and something that's meaningful for your community. So, what was that balance like for you in the process?
I would say we're so fortunate that it was surprisingly simpler than any process I've kind of ever been a part of because my friend Kaliko Hurley, like she really led the charge in the first film for creating this Oceanic Trust, which is a group of experts from across the Pacific that she put together that really served as our consultants throughout the filmmaking process. And we brought that back. So Disney already had this sort of um, oh my gosh, what words are escaping me?
Understanding
Yes,
or
understanding. That's a great word. Of what needed to be done. And also like so in building that Oceanic Trust for the first Moana, that became the gold standard for films across Disney Animation and even Disney Studios when telling us like a culturally resonant story. And so it was like a no-brainer that we would bring that back. And Jared Bush, who co-wrote the film with me, executive produced the film, like he is someone who cares so deeply about making sure that we get it right. And so there wasn't like the pushback in that, we want to push these cultural elements within the story. There was a lot of space given and a lot of flexibility given, but also a lot of passion. Like our production designer, Ian Gooding, our animators, our everyone involved in the process, like truly cares about getting it right. And so it wasn't just like writers, directors talking to our consultants. It was literally anyone from any department had access and had regular meetings to talk with our consultants to be like, what do you think of this? And it wasn't a process where we came up with an idea and we looked to our consultants to like red stamp it. I think a lot of times when we talk about um, representation, telling like these stories that have deep cultural impact, there's this sense that somebody from outside the culture writes something, creates something, and then looks to the consultants like, how can we, retrofit culture into this story? I mean, I think we can all imagine stories where this has happened, but we also have two Samoan directors and, like myself as a director, David Derrick Jr., and I co-wrote it. So there was like this instinctual sort of cultural like safety net you know, like neither of us know everything about what it means to be Samoan, but we have a different understanding of the world because this is who we are. And so I think having so many elements throughout the process to help us get things right helped. But then also, when you're working at Disney Animation, the people who work there, many of them have been there forever and have spent their whole careers there. And so there's just also this kind of fundamental understanding of what a Disney tone is. And so, you know, we sometimes push the limits of what feels right, and then we screen it within the studio and we pull back and we figure things out. So there's no one way this stuff gets done, but it was a really collective effort to make sure that we were crafting a story that was building on the cultural elements of the Pacific. And um, you know, the one thing I needed to happen when this movie came out was that it would resonate with my family, and that they would see themselves in this project, and the response from them has been really overwhelmingly positive and wonderful. And so as long as I didn't let them down, I'm feeling good.
Oh,
Oh, my
I
heart.
love that.
I mean, you talk about breaking boundaries and pushing the limit. Spoiler alert, you turned a Disney princess into a demigod.
Not a princess.
I mean, that's is like but let's talk about the bigness of this film for a second, because that I can't
Yeah.
even fathom. Like, that is such a big deal. Like, you have literally busted the floodgates. They don't exist anymore of what representation can look like within Disney animation. Like, that in itself, of like, even with the ancestors and doing all these things, like, she's a demigod now. Like,
He's a
Mhm.
demigod
that is
now.
I can't even wrap my
I
head
couldn't
around
remember if
how
I was
much
allowed to
that
say that now
matters.
because I've lost track of space and time. But yes, she's a demigod. She is.
My goodness,
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit about like pushing those boundaries and kind of collecting all of this together and expanding a little bit more on working with David G. Derrick, Jason Hand, Jared Bush, Beck Smith. What a collaborative of people. I can't believe like
I mean, we have a really great team, and everyone kind of brought their own specific gifts to the project. We have over 700 people on our crew. So it wasn't just us. It was people in Canada, it was people in Burbank. It was just a lot of people who came to work every day to try to make the film worthy of the Disney canon. And I think that was really exciting. I'm proud of that. But we knew we couldn't end the movie the way it began. Like, we wanted Moana to really go through something that changed her, because that's what happens when we grow up. Like,
Mm.
we think we know who we are, like I said, and then circumstances change. We have to make choices that have real consequences, whether they're good or they're bad. And she is someone who cares so deeply about her community that she is willing to go as far as it takes and do whatever it takes, to create a better future for her people, which is something, I mean, speaking of hope, I think that's something we all hope that we can aspire to. And so it made sense to us that she would be like fundamentally changed by this experience, and to make her a demigod, to have her level up in a way that, you know, changed her friendship and partnership with Maui in a new way. Like, all of that was so exciting to us. And, you know, who knows what's next?
She really went beyond.
oh,
Oh, did she?
Yeah, she did. She did. It was so cool to see, like, just from like as a moviegoer, like the thoughts in the back of your head. I was like, they can't make Moana a demigod, can they?
Or can they?
And when everything started playing out, if I like just genuinely, it felt so deserved. I think that there's like, if people can complain about, oh, this person's too powerful for no reason. No, Moana deserves every little bit of magic that like is in her heart and soul now, because she saved the ocean how many times?
She reconnected all the people of the ocean. If that doesn't make you a demigod, like,
and then when all the tribes, like, I could talk about like the like plot stuff all day, because like I was just like, it's so good. The Kakamora were so cute and fun, and then like all the tribes coming together at the end, that made me tear up. And the little sister. I mean, there's just so many aspects of the film that are just absolute winners, and I think it's like for any film that's a feat, but for a sequel film especially, like to
ugh.
still hold so
wait,
much.
is this what the kids do?
The
Oh,
kids do this or this. Sometimes they hit it
Yeah.
with this.
Oh no.
There's
Okay.
so many hearts
Thank you
now.
for that. I appreciate that. Yeah, it was important to us to make sure that if we were going to connect the people of the ocean, that we reminded people that the people of the ocean are so diverse and that,
Yes.
Melanesia, Micronesia, Polynesia, we all exist within the Pacific. And I would say, going back to like a moment that really resonated for me. I wasn't in the theater, but when the TikToks started coming out about like Melanesian people coming out and saying, we've never seen ourselves on screen like this before. Like, and it's a moment, right? But like that moment is the first moment for a lot of people that they ever saw themselves depicted on a big film ever. And like to me, that's what Moana was the first time.
Right.
And so to be able to give that to another community was just like,
Yeah.
wait, is that funny?
I love it. Egg yolk lessons with tremendous talk. I love it. I love it.
It was
Yeah,
awesome.
it's absolutely fantastic. And I hope there's more opportunity. I mean, obviously there's a post-credit scene, $1 billion at the box office and climbing right now. I'm putting a lot of hope and manifestation out there that we're gonna get more of Moana because
Well, to tide you over until then, in 2020, summer 2026, I have another movie coming out, the live action Moana. So,
Yeah.
of course. I don't know if you're allowed to talk about that much, but how's that going?
I mean, it's filmed, so
Oh wow, that's
I am
crazy.
very excited about it. We'll see. We'll see what comes next.
I
my
have to thank you so much because you have not only completely redefined the way sequels are built, the way sequels are handled, the way sequels are done, but you've also redefined how people just approach filmmaking in general, like the boundaries you can push, the things that you think are attainable in your head, and you've just completely broken all of that down. So thank you so much for
Thank
not
you.
only being this like bar of representation for people to kind of aspire to, but just like I don't know, just the way that you've really just gone above and beyond in every single way for this film, for the people that are represented in this film, the culture, everything. Like it's just this is how you make a film, buddy. This is how you do it.
Look, I'm gonna come to you both every time I need a pep talk because truly you make me feel so good.
Listen, we love hyping good people up, and you deserve every little bit of it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no
Thank you.
worries. Well,
All right.
do you think we should do a pass the mic, Ash?
Let's do it.
Let's do it, Dana.
Yeah, what is that?
We did this last time. We're just gonna let you say whatever you want to say in this moment, whether it's promotion, whether it's just what you're feeling right now, or a call to action, or even just saying hello. I just want to give you a space on our little platform to do so. And yeah, we really thank you for your time today.
Oh, pass the mic. I will. Oh, okay. I will say. One of my side hustles is I co-founded an organization called Peak to help Pacific Islanders improve representation throughout filmmaking and television, but also to create space for community and opportunities for growth, to learn more about like what you can even do within the film industry. And so I would encourage anyone out there. I met a wonderful young Hawaiian when we were out doing these screenings who came up to me and said that they didn't feel like they had community. And so I got to direct them to Peak and say, you do have a space here. So if you're out there and you're a Pacific Islander and you feel alone, I want you to know that you are not alone. That you can go check out Peak Pacifica on Instagram. We have a website. Not only do we have fellowship opportunities in writing, producing, and hopefully acting coming up this year, but we have space for you to feel seen and to encourage you to do your best work and get out there and tell your own stories.
Fantastic organization, fantastic conversation with a fantastic filmmaker. Dana, thank you for being on Tremendous Talk.
Thank you for having me again. Anytime.
It was amazing. So much to come. We're excited for you.
Well, it was good to talk to you guys. Thank you.
Great to
Thank
talk to you as well.
you. Sending all
Thank
my
you,
love
guys.
and thank you to your mom again.
Hey, if you know anyone who needs a baby blanket,
Absolutely.
I'm
I'll
there's
share
Wheels
that
are
with
turning.
you.
Wheels are
Okay.
turning.
That's so
All right.
beautiful.
The Tremendous Talk podcast is produced by Lawrence Sharma, Ashley Rapuano Sanchez, Gabriela David, Joseph Garalde, and Jeremiah Abraham in collaboration with Tremendous. The Tremendous Talk podcast jingle is by Jared Sanchez and Ashley Rapuano Sanchez, produced at Hamsterdam Records.